100 Marquesans left. They lead a carefree life, these Marquesans, getting as much joy as possible out of each day. They don't need fish hooks, they use spears underwater. And a Marquesan always gets his fish. The fish are very plentiful and the Marquesan is clever. That's a good combination. Frying pans, what use? They eat 'em raw. And I guess the fish, if given his choice, would rather be bitten by the white teeth of a Marquesan maiden than the teeth of a hungry shark. At least I would. On shore we found fruits and vegetables growing in profusion. This is the mango, a very delicious tropical fruit, if you don't object to the slight taste of turpentine. But that taste is very slight. You don't notice it after you've eaten the fruit several days. It's delicious, and you don't care how much juice runs down your chin and inside of your shirt. And believe me, that's plenty. The breadfruit grows on a fine, large tree. It's a staple article of diet of the Marquesan. Flowers were everywhere and of every imaginable color. And there's another beautiful thing found in the Marquesas group. The girls. They're lovely. They're just happy grown-up children. They spend their days dancing, swimming, and singing on the beach. They wear a single garment called a periu. It's about twice as wide as a bath towel and twice as long. They take this and give it a quick flip around their bodies and tuck under the ends. There are no buttons or hooks or pins or suspenders, but I'm darned if I ever saw one of them fall off. And believe me, I watch carefully. Someday when the picking is good, this girl ought to pick herself a shirtwaist. It's a lucky captain that can visit one of these islands and get away with his entire crew, because some of the boys are tempted to desert. But you can't blame the fellows. The girls are friendly. It's really a great place for a young man, or for an old man with young ideas. We had no difficulty getting these girls to dance, but it was difficult to get them to stop. Whenever they heard music and saw the camera set up, they danced. Well, they insisted on getting into the picture. We're going to let them wriggle out of it the best way they can. The natives told us that it rains every day in the year in Samoa. But it generally takes the form of hard showers at night. Plenty of sunshine during the day results in a luxurious growth of tropical vegetation. Part of the coast of Samoa, of the island of Tutuila, is rocky, which may differ from your idea of a South Sea Island beach. But they have these palm-lined beaches, and whenever you find one, you generally find a collection of native huts. To be a good South Sea Island dancer requires years of training. You have to start almost from the cradle. This little kitty got a pretty early start. But imagine exercising like this in the hot sun when you don't have to. The sitting Siva dance of the women of Samoa, according to Robert Louis Stevenson, who spent a great many years in the South Seas and who is buried in the Samoan group, is the most graceful dance in the world. Every movement made by these women tell a story. They tell of their past lives, of their present existence, and of their hopes and fears for the future. The women are good dancers in Samoa, but the men are better. The women have a few tasks to perform. But when America took possession of Samoa, the men learned that in America the politicians didn't work. So all the men in Samoa have become politicians. They don't work, all they do is dance and talk politics. And in their dance, their movements tell of the history of Samoa. The Samoans kept no written record of their history. All of the incidents were handed down from one generation to another in the movements of the Siva. It must be very interesting to one who can interpret the movements of this dance. Now you've had your glimpse of Polynesia. You've seen the natives and you've seen the happy, carefree lives they lead. Now you can compare all this with what you're going to find in Melanesia, for we're just about to cross the 180th meridian, and we'll be among the blacks. It's in Melanesia we find the cannibals and the headhunters. Our first stop will be at the Fiji Islands, a British Crown colony. 75 years ago, to speak of the Fiji Islands brought up visions of cannibalism. But today, according to the British government and the missionaries, cannibalism has ceased. The natives are trained to police the islands of the group wherever there are whites. It may be possible that the Fiji Islander, living so close to the dividing line between Polynesia and Melanesia, has had the Melanesian blood softened by the Polynesian strain and proves more susceptible to the influences of civilization. The children are very intelligent looking, considering the fact that their grandparents were cannibals, but they had the queerest types of haircut. Each one had his or her idea of beauty in a haircut. This girl washed her hair that morning and couldn't do a thing with it. And this fellow cuts his hair with a hammer and a chisel. They just reverse our method of building a house. They build the framework of the roof and lift it, and then build the underpart of the hut. Then they thatch the whole thing with palm leaves, grass, and reeds. And it may surprise you to know that a hut built in this way is waterproof. The rainfall in the Fijis is very heavy. They have a great many bananas in this group. Practically all the bananas used in Australia and New Zealand are shipped from the Fiji Islands. They break each banana from the bunch and pack it separately. The bananas are brought down the rivers on great bamboo rafts. After the raft is unloaded, it's burned, for it's a great deal easier to go back up the river and build another raft than it would be to pull this one back up the swift current. Fish lure, for the large saltwater game fish. A Fiji Island sailing canoe would give you nervous prostration. It's a long, narrow canoe held upright by an outrigger. The sail is made of grass cloth, and the lines and halyards are made of coconut fiber. The women are good dancers, but remember, they do all the work. They have less time to dance than have the men. The men are all warriors. They haven't had a war for 75 years. Nevertheless, they're warriors, and they won't work. All they do is dance. And are they good? They've got to be good. They go through this dance of the war clubs, requiring hours, hundreds of intricate movements, absolutely without music, not even the beating of a tom-tom. We watched them for hours and didn't see one mistake or hesitation on the part of a dancer. On the left, and we approached the Andaman Islands in the Bay of Bengal, where we found the pygmies, the Jarawayan pygmies, perhaps the most primitive people on earth. Of the nose. And among these savages, too, the pipe was the favorite article. These hats were supposed to frighten undesirable visitors away from their island, and they didn't want us to go back into the interior. This always worked on the superstitious tribes from other islands, but naturally it had no effect on us, so they finally gave it up and disappeared in the jungle. Sometime later, when we followed them, we found their village, a very evil, vile-smelling place. We found the men and boys living in a compound by themselves. The women live with the pigs. The man's compound is absolutely taboo to women. If a woman enters a man's compound, she is killed instantly. That may sound silly in this day of civilization, but I assure you it's one of the many brutal customs practiced by the cannibals of the New Hebrides. A cannibal has one virtue: he will generally tell the truth. We asked these fellows if they had eaten human flesh, and they grinned and grunted and readily from the small islands. Now we're going to show you the Solomon Island cannibals. You'll notice that he looks cleaner and more intelligent. But I assure you that he's just as treacherous, just as bloodthirsty, and just as fond of human flesh as the cannibals of the New Hebrides. In fact, these men have a very evil reputation. They're known as killers. I believe they'd kill their father for a half a string of shell money.